This week has been a really exciting week. This is number 6, okay? Food Forest Abundance Master Series. And today I got the big guy on himself, and that would be Jim Gale. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. There are some people on this planet that are just totally insane, okay? And he is one of them. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you do what hardly no one does, okay, and then you stand in that power, because we've all been programmed. Everybody's been programmed, and understand something. If the majority's not doing it, then it's not easily accepted. And then when somebody does something that the minority doesn't even do, but it's even smaller than that, okay? And that's what I want to talk about today, and that is food forest abundance, and that is giving people back their sovereignty. What if you were able to grow enough food for your family and share it with your neighbor? What would that do for a community? Jim?
When we achieve mass adoption of the most logical and loving and joyful and healthy thing we could ever do, and that is take out the poisons and grow food instead of lawns. Like this living salad bar here with the toilet paper plant, right? This is incredibly healthy, nutritious food. When we do that, we solve all the world's biggest problems.
And you know what? And guess what? That's not a sales pitch. We solve all the world's biggest problems, because if you weren't spraying your your lawns and you were actually growing a food forest, what would that do for the birds, the bees, the bugs, the bacteria? We probably wouldn't be running away from bacteria either. What do you think, Jim?
Well, to get really numbers driven here, there's 890 million acres of farmland and almost 50 million acres of lawns in the United States. All we get to do, we don't have to do this, but we should, because it's good to do on every level, is just put food in the ground instead of lawns. And then that 890 million acres of farmland will literally go back to nature. And we will have the Garden of Eden everywhere, peace on earth. We'll reverse deforestation and mass extinction and cancer and tyranny, all of it.
And you know what? I totally believe him. And the other thing too is that Jim would actually put me out of a job. So just know that if he's totally successful, I will be out of a job. And understand something, I want to be out of this job. I love it, it's passion and purpose, but that's people. I can find something else to do with people that I love, and that would be everyone. Jim, I want to ask you this. Why did you take on such a big task, and how long were you thinking about it, and how did you get your wife to buy into it, and how did you get everybody else to buy into this project? Because you know it was insane, because you know how much money it took to even pull this off, and then to get people to buy into it. I mean, you know how much energy you have to do to get people to actually believe in something that hardly anybody does?
You know, that's where I like to start with the simplest thing. Like, if you just take, if you live in this zone, right? And if you live in Minnesota, you could do this with an apple seed, right? You take an apple seed, and this happens to be a moringa, right? Or let's look at the papaya. So this papaya, we put this in the ground, and after we put this in the ground, we've done nothing else. It took us maybe an hour building this little mound here, putting good soil in, and then putting that in the ground. Maybe an hour or even less. And now look at the yield that we receive from that time invested. So this is not only not hard, but relative to the lives that we have been programmed and conditioned and lied to live, this is the most convenient and easy way to live, just having food all over the place.
Can I pull it back a little bit? I still want to know why you did this, because understand something, this was a huge undertaking, and you know that an undertaking like this, if you weren't on your game emotionally and physically, you could put your own health at jeopardy to try to prove a point like this and to try to pull something off like this. You know what I'm saying, don't you? Do you mind
I
if you
do. You
answer
asked
that?
6 or 7 questions at the same time. I only answered one of them. It was the highest level one. Is
That
the
is.
why is absolutely so big. And so what happened for me is layers. This is, and everybody is going through this right now. There's a transition going on in the world at the highest level of spirit and connection, and it's filtering down through all of the other levels. For me, I think literally I was born into this role. I always loved nature. They called me nature boy. I was always in touch with the natural system. And when I wasn't in touch with the natural system, I was suffering. And that's where people are right now. They're using their
Yeah.
computers, their
Yeah.
artificial intelligence too much. Now, is technology a good thing? Absolutely, technology is good. It can solve a lot of problems, but it's the balance that is way off. We are simply out of balance. So, after a lifetime of asking new questions related to how do we actually change the world, I've come down to the simplest thing. And that's what you say all the time, Dr. Wolf. Love yourself. And when you start with the awareness of who we truly are, and you start loving and respecting yourself, which means treating yourself well. If we love ourselves and respect ourselves, we don't consume poisons simply because why would we? Right? If we love and respect ourselves enough, we stay healthy, we stay present, because that's the most selfish and greedy thing we could ever do is to love ourselves. But then, as a result of this, and this is key, as a result of loving yourself, you'll have excess love to give. You'll have
Mhm.
excess energy and service and joy and
And
absolute
patience and patience
everything.
and compassion.
Yes. Yep. That's it. So I've landed after decades of struggle against the simplest notion of light mente, a mind free of fear and scarcity and government programming. And as a result of that, we are now living in what is, for me, reminiscent of the Garden of Eden. It's just freaking awesome.
Can I tell you just a little story? It's a sidetrack, I know, but I need to tell this story. And I'm actually going to put this up on Friday, and I'm going to put it up on my platforms. And actually, what it is, it's a mother videoing her 3-year-old son, and she gives him an iPad every time that they're at a restaurant, and when she's strolling him, when they're shopping. And this is a mother's confession. The baby is asleep, Jim, and it's actually like this. Watch. And this is what the baby's doing. And the mother saw this, and it just took her. And I don't want to say this, but the children that are supposedly 12 and under are not going to live past their parents, live out their parents. And the reality is if we had these food forests and we put our children in charge of the food forests, anyways, it just this like I'm telling you, this choked me up today. Like I just yeah, I thought the child was autistic, and then I finally, when I watched it and find out that all it was doing was scrolling on the iPad. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you just nailed my primary why is I have 4 daughters.
okay,
And I was out with Sophia today. You've met Sophia quite a few times.
yes,
We were strolling through the food forest and we were treasure hunting. Now, what does that mean? Well, we found a cucumber, we found mulberries, we found some unripe guava, and what else did she eat? Several things walking through the food forest. Now, here's the fun part. We didn't have to maintain them. Once these systems are in the ground, they just keep providing more all the time. So it's a matter of just harvesting and treasure hunting at that point.
isn't that wonderful? That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, how difficult is it with your older children now? Are
Well,
they?
it's more difficult. There's 2 of the 4 are in, and the other 2 are in the midst of kind of the school system and that whole growing up as teenagers thing. And
Yes.
what I always invite them back multiple times a week. I say, come on, let's go in the food forest. Let's go walk around. Let's go pick something. And when they're here, and when you're here, to everybody listening, when you're in your own system, whether it be a closet full of 5-gallon buckets growing food with an LED light, or a full-on food forest, it will teach you and nourish you and bring you joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just found out the other day that you were a championship wrestler. Now, I always like to ask people when I interview them, what part of that did you bring into the food forest, or the whole idea of doing it, and what kind of discipline? Because I want everybody to understand why I bring this up, because without discipline, nothing happens. And if you can't hold yourself accountable, to do at least 1% a day, you're just not going to get there, people.
Yeah. A very great question, my friend. So when I was my senior year, my junior year in high school, my senior year, my freshman year in college, were all big failures relative to what my expectations were. And then I wrote my goals. Our college wrestling coach had the whole team write their goals. And for the first time in my life, I wrote down a future that inspired me, that motivated me, that gave me purpose. And even though I was 19 and the goals were as an athlete, right? Wrestling. I wrote down that I wanted to be a 3-time All-American and national champion. And then something happened, because in the wrestling room, I changed. I didn't change by efforting more. I simply created a new identity for myself, an identity that was more empowered than the former identity, by visualizing the future. And then the thing that really shook me to the core, and I'll never forget the day, it was the day when team captains were being picked for the year. It was probably sometime late November, just before we started the actual tournaments and stuff. And Doug James raised his hand, and I was a freshman in college, a redshirt freshman. And he nominated me for team captain, and it was seconded. And then nobody disagreed, so nobody objected. So I became the team captain, and that really stunned me to presence, because I lived up to that. And what I'd like to do for everybody listening is nominate you all captain. You're all captain of your ship, of your life, of your energy, right? And once you fully take that and live it, it's so awesome.
Isn't that the truth? You know what? You have to be the captain of your ship, but first you better decide where you're going. And then you've got to find your passion and your purpose, everyone. And we all gave that up, didn't we, Jim? At some time in our life, we gave it up around teenage years, early 20s, and then we're just trying to find it again, usually.
Exactly. And here it is. It's here in the present right now. A lot of people talk about patience. There's something much better than patience, and it's presence. Because with presence, you don't need patience. Presence is everything. That's where the magic happens. That's where the wisdom is. That's where the communication is. It's always in the present.
And then guess what? You take that present and you gift the world. And you gift the world with it, because guess what? You're now living the eternal now. And that's really crucial. Jim, you traveled 37 countries, correct?
Yeah. My first trip, yeah.
On your first trip. Your first trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What can you tell us about that, and what did you learn, and maybe you're utilizing right now?
I learned that people all over the world are absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Everywhere I went, I carried a smile, and I learned how to say hello and thank you, and I learned how to say it with a smile. And that's all you need when you're traveling around the world. Now, those were different times. It was 1998. I was in Tanzania. I was in Kenya. I was in 2 places where the American embassies had just been leveled to the ground, right? So the hatred, the anger was already very present in these countries. And so I was in these countries, including Dar es Salaam and Karachi, Pakistan, And I learned that if I carried a smile and I resonated with the right people, and that's a big one because there are people that are angry and I simply don't vibe with those folks anymore. Do I love them still? Do I care for them still? Do I want them to not be angry and be happy? Sure, I do. But I'm not making it my job anymore to help that happen. My job is internal. My job is to make me the happiest and most powerful and productive person that I could ever be. In fact, the idea, the meek shall inherit the earth. The meek are not the weak. The meek are the powerful that choose logically to use their energy for good.
And also the word meek, everyone, meant something different when it was actually written. And we went and took that. Meek is not weak, okay? Meek is the silence is golden and I love you anyway. So you had an aha moment in Costa Rica, okay?
Yeah.
We had talked about that before. I'd like you to talk about that now if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Many aha moments. I was living away from home in a foreign country full time. I had met Andrea, my wife now of 17 years.
What was she doing there?
She was living there in an amazing town,
Okay.
Paris de Lidon, San Isidro. And what I realized after being in business there for a while is that there's layers of corruption and insanity and ignorance throughout their system and throughout our system, throughout all the government systems. I also learned permaculture and I also red pilled all at the same time. So what happened as a result of that is I went into a period of fear, of scarcity. And through fear and scarcity, I started working really hard and investing all of my savings. I had achieved about $1.3 billion in revenue in the mortgage industry the 3.5 years previous. I had a lot of money and time, and I dove deep down every rabbit hole, and I became fearful that we were going to destroy our world and that my daughters would not have kids. And after over a decade of living in that fear, I finally had the big aha moment, and that was just 3.5 years ago, that the first thing we let go of is fear in exchange for faith and courage. And here we are now, and things are going absolutely incredible.
Isn't it funny, eh? It's not just a thought, and you can actually go shopping and change the menu of your brain. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes. So let me ask you a question. Your vision about self-reliance, food independence. Okay, talk to me about the practical solutions for households and communities, and what does that look like? Because if you want to talk about fear, well, everybody's been programmed to fear that they don't want to become a farmer or a gardener, that back break bone, that you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. I don't want to do that either. No way do I want to be a farmer. My mom was a farmer, and she said it was just like slavery growing up. She had to harvest 900 eggs a day. She had to feed the chickens twice a day. She had to do this and that and the other thing. They were off grid in Minnesota. Now, that's a completely different life than we're demonstrating. We're also off grid. The difference is, instead of using unsustainable practices of poisoning our land and monocultures, we put 240 different types of food producing plants all around us. And then we simply walk around and harvest. So the biggest thing that I've learned is that we are meant to live simple lives of stewardship. And we're like the homeopathic doctor you referred to earlier. And
Yes.
as a result, over time of our practice, our primary business of installing food forests, everybody will have a food forest because there's no reason not to, except for ignorance.
Yes, and you know what? And I get the ignorant thing. Yeah, they're going to have to turn off Netflix though. Okay,
Yeah.
So let's talk about sustainability. Let's talk about entrepreneurship. Let's talk about personal freedom, because guess what? You've got to walk away from ignorance or you're not going to have any of this. And I tell everyone too that if you want to have a new life, you have to go for 6 months and you have to dedicate a certain amount of time every day to that until that program is woven into your DNA.
Yeah. You nailed it. You start by setting the intention. Once the desire hits, once the inspiration seed is planted, and you recognize that there is more than you're currently experiencing, there's more synchronicity, more love, more joy, more friendship, more collaboration, more community, more abundance of all kinds. Well, once you realize that, then take steps, right? At first, to create new habits. It might not be normal. Your homeostasis might be misery, depression, humiliation, shame, rage, pride, envy, gluttony, greed, lust. I mean, all of these things. But once you spark it with that desire and then you start taking steps, then just let it go from there and you're on your way.
Okay, if I can say something, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and this is why you got to go find your tribe. And this is why, if you want to do this, you got to go find your tribe and understand something. Jim has a tribe, and it goes all around, it reaches all around the world right now. He is in so many different states in the United States, countries around the world, and it's growing all the time. You know, I'm telling you right now, you got to find your tribe. So if you find your passion, if you find your purpose, if you really want to do this, then you got to find other people that have done it already. Don't go looking for approval or asking even your lovers or your friends or your neighbors, what do you think of this? They're going to go, what do you mean, what do I think of it? I've never thought about it before and I never want to do it. Okay, you got to go to people who have already done it and ask them, how did you do it and how do you like doing it? And because guess what? I'm going to tell you something. How many times in your life, Jim, did you shoot down your passion and purpose because somebody said, are you like crazy?
Well, I'll tell you one fun story. I got home from my travels and I had written my goals the whole time I was traveling. I was visualizing myself in the future and I had written my goals again. And when I got home, I told my buddies, my roommates, Pete and Rob, I said, guys, I'm going to be retired in 3 to 5 years. And at the time I was a fisherman. I wanted a boat and all that stuff. And one guy they were drinking. Then one guy just laughed and smirked and shook his head like, you're not even worth talking to about this. You're stupid. The other guy got mad. Pete, he actually got angry at me and he yelled at me and said, Jim, you're delusional. That's not how it works. And I smiled because it was too late. I had already lived it in my mind and I knew how this stuff works. And so I smiled, and 3.5 years later, I was living on a 42-foot Carver motor yacht. And exactly what I thought, but not in the way I thought. Like, here's the fun part. It doesn't happen the way you think it's going to happen. It happens in so much more spectacular ways.
Oh gosh. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. Every time I hit a bump, I just slow down and I breathe because guess what? And I don't want to sound like this and come off like this, but guess what? I can't see around corners. My creator can. And guess what? When things get really messy or when they don't go my way, I swear, I have learned to just love it. And guess what? Anytime that I've had like a temper tantrum, I missed the gift.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you a question here. So why do you keep telling people grow freedom? And I know what it's all about, but there's new people on here right now watching. Grow freedom. I mean, everybody's about freedom, but what do you mean by growing freedom? What's your definition?
It's really simple now that I've studied what's happening, and I'm good friends with multiple people on the front lines of this war. And this could be talked about from multiple perspectives: the ascension, the apocalypse, the great awakening, the golden age, war, a game, whatever perspective. The first domino to solving all the problems is taking the poisons out. The first domino or the first poison is fear. And once you become inspired and aware, right? Because the word choice is almost always misused. It implies awareness. But if there's no awareness of a new choice, then you're never going to choose it. So what our job is to create awareness, to shine a light on the first domino that will literally lead to peace on earth. And that is mass adoption of taking the poisons out and growing food instead of lawns. Because as Kissinger said 50 years ago, if you want to control people, control food, This is not a random set of events that's happening. And everybody listening to this knows this at some level. This is a strategy control, the mind, the actions, the energy of the slave, of the people that they look at as property. So let's tip that first domino and let's become self-reliant with faith and courage, and then start growing our own food, healthy, poison-free food, and then sharing that with our neighbors, and boom, we win.
There it is. There's only two ways to go. It's either the power of love or the love of power. And what most people don't get is just a very few families that that hold other people hostage to do their bidding, and it flows all the way down. And there's a government within a government. And I'm not into politics, so just know that. But that's what it's all about. It's just very few families that actually control everything and everyone. But guess what? They at least understood about strategy and understand every man in every household, and women too. But men, where are you? Where's your strategy to feed your family? For God's sakes, you know what? Men will come home and they think their job's over when actually it just starts at the front door. That's it.
Yeah. I think it was Martin Luther King who said, when the people who love peace organize as well as the people who love war, we shall have peace. So that is the mission that I've been focused on and obsessed with for now 16, 17 years, is how do we organize? Who will we need to organize? How will we do this? And the thing is very simple. Together, we win. Individually, we don't, right? So when we come together with faith and courage and we stand in non-compliance with tyranny, and I'll give you an example, a real example. We're building our family lifetime home here. We're spending all of our fiat assets to build life into this land. And when we run out of fiat assets, we inspire more, and then we put it into the land. And guess what? We did not ask the government for permission. We are completely outside of that system, declaring our freedom in such a way, in such a logical and strategic and tactical way. And I'm going to share the details of this. I have told the EPA, and thousands, tens of thousands of people have seen this message. I am the EPA. I am here to protect our environment. What the EPA does, and you can look this up, go to DuckDuckGo and look up corruption within the EPA. What they will allow me to do if I beg and pay an extortion tax is to use glyphosate and Roundup and poisons on my land, killing life. And so guess what? None of these tax people, none of these EPA people, none of these people are going to show up and have a debate with me, because my weapon will be the light of truth. It will be the camera. It will be the video. We've got videos going all over the property. If anybody shows up with force and violence, we'll simply have an open conversation with them, and we will give them an olive branch, and we will invite them to the light. We will invite them away from the dark side into the good. And they're not showing up because they know they're wrong and they're not quite ready to come full circle.
I hear you. Jim, can you walk to the light because it's getting darker?
Well, it is getting darker. I can go into my house if you want.
Oh, no, stay right there. Well, you can stay there as long as the sun sets behind you.
Yeah. Okay.
Get the sun there. Like okay. No, move over a little bit. The other way. I want the sun right behind you.
Oh, behind me. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. A little bit. Yeah, that's better. That's better. Okay, so let's keep going here. So tell me about the $1 billion mortgage company.
Well, so I started with a goal when I was 29. I was in Africa and I was writing, and I said I wanted to be, and by the way, I had just started reading every book I could find on human performance, self-help, you name it. Dennis Waitley, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Abraham, all of them.
Right.
And so my belief systems about what was possible were shattered. And now I believed that anything was possible. And so I got home and I was going to be a speaker with the Wisdom Foundation that I created to teach emotional intelligence in schools. I spoke at a few schools, and the teachers were offended because I was offering new suggestions and solutions. And I didn't get why. I was still not awake to what was happening. But a friend of mine at a bar said, Jim, why don't you come work for my mortgage company? I said, great. He said, there's no salary, but I'll give you a commission on every mortgage that you originate. Well, I loved it. Within 11 months, I started my own company, and we flowed with it. We transitioned from what was a not so ethical and just and efficient system to a more efficient system. And we used ethics as our foundation, and we ended up growing to 1.3 billion. And here's the fun part. 1.3 billion in sales, not one lawsuit in the whole company. Then, and this is so relevant to today's awareness, I bought a boat and I went to live on the ocean to do poetry and learn about to further my knowledge and pursuit of awareness. And we hired a full-time lawyer to take my spot. The lawyer destroyed the company. So I was already gone. I came back. The lawyer and his friend then paid me out. And then they proceeded to destroy the company, which no longer exists. And that was a big learning for me. The legal system is the undoing of good communication, of handshakes, of awareness, of ethics. And so we do not use that system. We use the permaculture principles, which are earth care, people care, and fair share. It's very simple. I lost your voice there. I'm not sure if not quite yet. And if anybody's listening, if you can hear me still, I'll just keep rambling on because I've got some neat things to share. So we have a TV show starting, and anytime you want, Daryl, just jump right back in. But we have a TV show starting filming here because, again, the objective is mass adoption, right? When we have mass adoption, when we have a simple cultural shift that is so incredibly logical, take the poisons out and grow food instead of lawns. Mass adoption of that wins the war on every level and creates a future of abundance for our grandkids and beyond. So how is the big question? So that's what we're doing. We've had a TV show funded to the tune of several $1 million. We have 12 episodes funded. It's in the team that's putting this on, by the way. They're absolutely incredible, high professional team. It's going to change the world. It's going to be one of the elements that when we add the council and the generals and colonels and Green Berets and Emmy Award winners and all of the folks that are part of our network and see what we see, then we do create that cultural shift. I've even written presidential campaigns, and I met with Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Shiva. Dr. Shiva, by the way, got 4 degrees from MIT, and he is the one that created email, right? So I met with both Kennedy and Shiva within about a month and a half period, sat down one-on-one. In fact, the interview with Dr. Shiva is online. If you looked up Dr. Shiva for president and then look up Dr. Shiva, Jim Gale, food forest or food security, you'll find that. Anyway, yes, now I can hear you.
Just turn around and face the sun. Maybe we can get some more light on your face, okay?
Okay. And since you can hear me good and most people have seen it, we'll continue.
Okay, go ahead.
So then both of these candidates, who, by the way, don't agree with each other at all, they both agreed 100% that this is a good idea. And here's the strategy. This is important. This is the fun part, right? The strategy I laid out would literally create peace on earth in 4 years. Here it is. We start by fixing the crime, by putting food forests in schools and having the inmates grow their own food. When this has been done, and it has, the recidivism rate fell by more than 60%. So imagine a campaign strategy which starts with, we will end the majority of crime. Boom. Now, what about this next level? We will take all the poisons out of the school lunches and school land, and the children will learn permaculture and grow some of their own food and learn about nature. Well, we turn every school into a nursery. We change the world. All right. And then let's go to the peace on earth part, and then we'll get back to one more thing, Dr. Wolf. And what would happen if the people with excess in the world sent their excess in the way of permaculture design and installation and seeds and food and plants to the people in Palestine and in other places that are suffering, right? What if DeSantis took 5% of the $90 billion Florida budget and put it into food forestry? Over 4 years, 5% would equal $18 billion. That's 18,000 $1 million food forests just in the state of Florida. That's every park, that's every school, that's every city center. That would revolutionize and make Florida the most healthy and independent state in the nation. Dr. Wolf?
Well, you're not going to get it unless you keep saying it. And all we can do is just keep saying it and getting the message out, because you know what? Believe it or not, we don't need the masses. All you need is 2 to 3% to have any type of change like this.
Yep. That's right.
And that's the truth, everyone. So we just need 2 to 3% to make massive change in the world. I'm serious. Okay. Let's talk about food forests and the so-called climate change. Can you help me with that?
Oh, I sure can. So this is why when Victor Hugo said there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. The Garden of Eden, food forestry, using our resources wisely, enlightenment, that is the idea. And so here's how that works. Man, I just got off track. I saw a raccoon or something. Where was I going, Dr. Wolf? What was the question again?
I just said, this whole climate change thing.
Oh,
and then with
change.
food forests. I don't know if you saw, but now they're out after gardens. They're coming after gardens. Okay, so I don't want to get into the whole nonsense of it, but maybe if you can give some clarity here, because believe it or not, the majority of the population is going to buy this BS, this belief system. Meanwhile, if it wasn't for gardens and home gardens, nobody would have been fed for centuries.
Yes. So to climate change, the reason I was saying that about the idea whose time has come is even the people who believe in the climate change narrative, there are multiple studies that show that when you put a food forest in the ground, it is the ultimate stack of functions. The soil is Earth's carbon sink, right? And we are made of carbon, and plants breathe and eat. They eat carbon. Right? So plants become the carbon filters. So the more food forests you have, the more it absolutely destroys the climate change narrative, which is all part of a bigger lie, which is meant to control you and create fear. And now they're even attaching their new currency. The CBDC is going to be attached to carbon credits. They're going to destroy the dollar, which is happening now, and it has been happening for a long time. And it's all going to be for control. That's another reason it's smart to grow your own food.
Yeah, totally. I want to know, I know you talked about you've got a TV show coming, but what other projects are on the back burner, things like this? I mean, you guys got to understand something. If you take a look at already the interviews I did, this is the 6th one. I did 5 of his other specialists that are actually making all this happen. If you take a look at this engine that he's creating, okay, it is not going to stall out. And everybody needs to understand that when, you know what, the thing is Jim's the kind of guy that he has a dream and he's going to see it through. And he's not going to ask anybody for approval. And I do the same exact thing. And we can't. Because, the more amazing the dream is, the more it scares the majority of the population. So why don't you scare us a little bit, Jim?
I love that. Let's get down to brass tacks. Like, what does this actually mean? And from 2 perspectives. One is I gave, this guy, Mike with Throw TV, he was here just the other day, and we had a barter and exchange event here at Galt's Landing. And he brought a bunch of colloidal silver and a bunch of plant starts to exchange for other goods and services that other people were offering, right? Some people had honey, some people had massage, some people had arts. It was just beautiful. And he said, Jim, in August of 2022, so about a year and a half ago, you gave me about a 2-foot sweet potato slip, which is just basically a vein that I pulled out of the ground and I handed it to him. He has already harvested from that little vine 100 pounds of sweet potatoes, and he's given 20 vines to 20 of his friends. So that one vine has turned into exponential sweet potatoes. So, as a return on investment, that shows the power of it. But let's
And
go to the
guess
next
what?
level.
That
Go
one
ahead.
vine could rock the whole system and make it fall apart.
That's
Nobody
such a
gets
great
that.
metaphor. Yes. Dude, that, you know what? We should do some type of math scheme just on that one thing, because it's epic what can be done. Like the concept, you can count the seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the apples in a seed, comes through here. So that's what plants do. That's what nature does. That's what the Garden of Eden, God's design, whatever you want to say is the foundation of this life system. That's how it's meant to be. So now let's look at, as a result of Galt's Landing being here, we have inspired millions of dollars of food forests to be installed. And just our local Florida team, and we've got teams all over the place, and we're always looking for more, by the way. If anybody out there listening wants to be in the business of either designing or installing these Garden of Eden landscapes, then get a hold of us, because that's what we do. We come together to put these systems all over. But just from here, Cameron has signed, I believe it's around $420,000 worth of installations, because when people come to Galt's Landing, they get inspired and then they want to do it at home themselves. And then after a couple years, then they're inspiring their neighborhood, and so on and so on and so on.
And if I can say something, everyone, you want to check out, okay? You want to check out Galt's Landing, and it's just outside of St. Cloud, Florida. And I'm telling you, they've got beautiful Airbnbs there, okay? There's a lake you can go fishing on. If you've got children, they are going to love it there for a few days. And then why don't you go and wrap your head around the idea that what you're about to do is change your lives and the lives of your children's children. You know, I'm telling you something. Isn't it great to take a look at what you've done with your children, but what your children will do with their children? That's where this all starts, and there's no better holiday, small day. You know, you don't have to go long. And then if you don't want to do that, at least call up for a free consultation and find out that it's not that scary. Start off where you want, and these guys will build, they'll build it in your actual walk-in closet, okay? A food forest. I mean, you don't, if you're an apartment or a condo, just get started. Just get started.
Yep.
Yeah?
Garden what you've got. If you've got a space on your kitchen counter in your tiny condo, you can grow a little bit of microgreens or one of those little hydroponic systems. Now, by the way, typically those things end up not being used over time because they're a little bit of effort. They might be 5 minutes a day of effort. And we know how people have gotten lately with putting in effort on things, but that, not you people, just people in general. But the best thing, either on your own land or on any friend or family's land, start putting seeds in the ground with perennial plants that simply provide more and more food every single year.
We just want you to what? Not be a slave, not feel fearful. What if we can't get food? Well, just grow it, okay?
Yes.
Just grow it. But you know what? You're going to have to actually put one foot in front of the other and just get started. Just in one step. Just take that one step. And like I told you, you got to find your tribe. I mean, you're going to get all the support you want from Food Forest Abundance. There's so many people involved all around the world to just want to help.
Yeah, that's it. And we follow the principles. The principles that are so easy and wonderful. In fact, I just had a meeting with one of our team, and there was somebody that was on the periphery that did something that we considered not good for the client, almost unethical. And my friend said, well, maybe we should write a contract or put that in the contract. I said, we've got one commitment, and that is the permaculture ethics: earth care, people care, and fair share. Now, everybody gets what earth care and people care is, but what does fair share mean? And this has been so corrupted and twisted, right? The idea that the government talks about with sharing is actually thievery, right? When you at the point of a gun, of threat and violence of government, are forced to give up the product of your labor. That's not sharing. It's called slavery. So what do? We give our excess, we reinvest our excess, our yield into logical places in society. For instance, we put in food forests in schools, and we're happy to put in food forests at prisons. We put in food forests in city parks with our excess. And we've already done this. And the more excess we get, the more we get to do it. And we do it very openly and very transparently, because it's the most, and this is the fundamental thing I want to get across to y'all. It's the most selfish thing I could ever do, is to serve you and to love you. Because as a result of that service and love, there is reciprocation. It's just human nature.
Isn't that the God's truth? So the reality is that we better come together and stop talking about love, but actually start practicing it with ourselves so that we can do better with each other. And that's how I feel about the whole thing. And I don't want to go into this realm, but I think I just want to mention it, and just know that inflation is taxation when these psycho so-called people decide that we are starting to evolve, and they just want us down back on our knees. So whether you want to believe it or not, everything is orchestrated. Yes, inflation is orchestrated. It's another form of taxation. And guess what? The people are evolving. They're starting to wake up. We need to put them down on their knees where they belong. Okay? You can believe it or not believe it. You can think that, oh, this just happens. Nothing just happens. Okay? Nothing just happens. Jim?
That's right. And we put them out of our energy field by turning our energy 100% away from their destructive, toxic, and slave systems, right? We do it by becoming self-reliant in our hearts and our minds, and in our land, in our families, in our communities. Right?
Do what you love and love what you do.
Yes. And follow your bliss. Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do every day. And I'm going to stay in the moment, and I'm going to know that I have to stand guard, okay, until I do feel that unconditional love and care for myself. I'm going to have to stand guard, okay, watching myself until I can plant new beliefs in my mind, just as I need to plant them in the soil. Jim?
That's right. Keep the candles burning, keep the light of consciousness on to the best of our ability, create new habits around that. And there's another thing that I love is creative questions. When we ever find ourselves suffering, ask a question that's exactly contrary to the suffering. What's good about this? What's great about this? What can I learn from this? How is this divinely orchestrated to teach me what I need to know so I can get to the next level? And on and on and on. And once you create these habits, then the habits guide us. And then pretty soon, boom, here we are in the moment, enjoying everything.
You know what, Jim? This has been an amazing series, and I want to thank you for putting all your people together for this Food Forest Abundance series that you guys will be able to find on docofdetoxlibrary.com. But make sure, as you can see the information here, that you get in touch with Food Forest and connect with them on some level, or go to their website and check them out. And Jim, I want you to close off this series, so you'll have the last word. And I would like you to close this series off any way that you want, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much, my friend. So his name is Corey. He's a young fellow that really gets what freedom is all about. And he said, Jim, what is the most important thing in 1 minute? What's the most important thing for freedom? And it's very easy. Presence. Presence equals freedom. So practice presence. Practice enjoying the now, and have a great day.
Thanks, Jim. Bless everyone.
Thanks,
3, 2, 1. We got this. When we come together, we're stronger.
Love ya.